Hello and welcome into Real Toolbox Reviews. I'm your host Nate. Today we're going to be reviewing the Milwaukee Tool 3453, which is a 1/4-inch hex impact driver. It's part of their M12 platform. With this review, I'm going to do a hate, love, and all the above. I'm also going to go into whether or not I think this is for a pro or a Joe. And lastly, I'm just going to give you my thoughts on whether or not I think this is actually worth the money. But let's get after it. It's time for another Real Toolbox review. All right, so just starting off, this is, as I mentioned in the intro, a 1/4-inch hex impact driver. So it takes 1/4-inch bits here in the collet. It's currently sold under model 3453, and if you want to get really technical, it's -20. That's for the tool only. I believe they sold it as -22 for a little while as a tool kit. This tool originally showed up at the 2022 Pipeline event. That's where Milwaukee Tool rolls out pretty much all of their new tools, everything from their entire universe of tools. So that could not only be drills, but it could be things in plumbing, carpentry, I believe auto, just everything, pretty much everything they make. But let's get into kind of the technical details and the measurements of this, because that's what kind of makes it special. So in looking at this drill currently measures out as one of the smaller drills on the market. Just looking at the digis of this drill, the drill measures just under 5 inches. We believe we measured it with a caliper, and it basically was 4 15/16 wide. And measuring it from the base of the battery to the top, it measures about 7 3/8 inches tall. And that is with a 2 amp hour battery. When we weighed it on the scale, it measured to be just under 2 pounds, just barely, and that's with a 2 amp hour battery. When you put a 6 amp hour battery, it comes in almost exactly at 2.5 pounds. So again, a very, very light drill. And its specs are fairly standard for an impact driver. They say it can do up to 3,600 RPM on mode 3, and in total it can deliver about 1,500 inch-pounds of torque. It has 4 drive modes that control it, level 1, level 2, and 3. And then it also has a self-tapping mode that you can use with self-tapping screws. It goes kind of in a pulse motion, so it's not quite the all-out push of a typical impact driver. But modes 2 and 3 are what I use most commonly. All right, next up, let's do hate, love, and all the above. Starting off with all the above. The first thing being the thermal capacity of this drill. They advertised that it had some technology in it that allowed you to shoot screw after screw after screw, and it would stay relatively cool. And I didn't really feel that. I used it for attaching subfloor, and it really tended to get hot over and over again. Secondly, they advertised that it had increased power, and I have to say that between modes 2 and 3, I didn't feel like a huge difference. Even when we tested the drill, I just didn't see an enormous difference between 2 and 3. I saw a difference between 1 and 2, and obviously 1 and 3. But yeah, it's just kind of something that I just thought was okay. And lastly, battery life. I think that it's just good. It's not great. Typically with a 2 amp hour battery, we'd get around 4 to 5 hours of work if we were using it repetitively. We had to use a 6 amp hour if we're doing a bigger job. Next, moving into what I did not like about the drill, the hate section. This drill is extremely top heavy. It's teeny tiny. It weighs only about 2 pounds, as we referenced, and most of that weight is in the top of the drill. So when you're fastening things, it does tend to kick just a little bit, but just even if you just spun this drill right now, it would tend to kind of feel a little bit imbalanced towards the top. And that kind of leads into the other thing that I did not like about the drill, which is that because it is top heavy, when you have it set up like this with a 2 amp hour or a 3 amp hour battery, it can very easily fall over. If you're anything like me, I have left this thing on the top of a ladder. Luckily it didn't fall on my head. but I've had it fall off of tables and it just has fallen over a lot, which could lead to some bad outcomes, obviously, and some safety issues as well. And now, what did I love about this drill? And there are quite a few things. The first off being the size. I love how compact this is. It is not the most compact drill on the market, but it's pretty close, and it's actually the most compact that Milwaukee has ever released. But you can just do more with it because you can get it into really, really tight spaces. Also set up like this, it fits right into my Vito Pro Pack bag without taking up a lot of space. So I absolutely love the size. The other thing that I do love about it is the power. It can, in modes 2 and 3, deliver adequate power to do most fasteners. I don't think you're going to be using this to do lag bolts or do any even type of longer fasteners, such as structural screws. But for just 3 1/8 GRKs, for cabinet screws, for anything pretty much below 4 inches, this thing is really ideal, specifically in modes 2 and 3. So considering the size and the power that you get, it's really, really ideal. And lastly, the tri-LEDs on the front of this are just awesome. I use this thing obviously as a drill mostly, but I also use it a lot just as a light. When I was in dark spaces, you can use it to illuminate stuff temporarily. But just seeing what you're working on, this is excellent at that. The tri-LEDs are awesome. It's not the typical light ring you see that are on a lot of drills these days, but it's still a system that works really good. And I felt that it had a better brightness on your workpiece, which, you're not always working in the dark, but even being able to see what you're fastening has been fantastic. For testing this drill, we used 4 different types of fasteners. We started off with a drywall screw, a 2.5 inch GRK, a 3 1/8 inch GRK, and then for kind of a torture test, we did a 4 inch Timberlock screw. And we did that starting with modes 1, then into 2, then into 3, and we also did the self-tapping mode as well. But here's the test footage, starting out with mode 1. And you can see here, starting off with the drywall screw, it handled it, but moving into the bigger fasteners, we didn't really expect it to perform. Obviously, it's not meant to do these bigger fasteners. Now moving into level 2, as you can see here, relatively increased performance. And now into mode 3. This is the most powerful mode of the drill, so obviously pretty good performance here. All right, and here is the drilling performance. We used a 1/2 inch drill bit, starting with mode 1. All right, so next just looking at the board that we drilled into, kind of what I was saying earlier, there's really not a big difference between 2 and 3. I felt that 2 took a little bit longer to do the job of 3, as you'd expect. Mode 1 is really not meant to do this. It's meant for small fasteners, or if you have to do something a little bit more delicate. And self-tapping was as advertised. It did its work, but you can see here kind of the differences between the 1, 2, and 3 different modes. And as for drilling, this thing, you can use it to drill, but 1/2 inch was probably a little bit too big, but it was the easiest test that I could kind of think of. I've used it with, smaller 1/4 inch, eighth inch bits with no problem at all. It can drill, but doing a huge job like this is really not what it's meant to do. All right, so one of my favorite sections is always Pro or Joe. And for this drill, it is for both. I think this drill can do everything from like basic household tasks, like doing small fasteners or drilling, doing light drilling. But if you are a pro, you can use this in a wide range of capacities. Now, myself as a carpenter, I used it intermittently. This wasn't my primary drill, but if you are in plumbing or electrical, HVAC, pretty much any other trade that doesn't use a drill necessarily every single day, this is pretty much perfect. I think this is just a tiny, tiny little drill, especially if you already are on the M12 platform. You can really, really do a lot with this, and it doesn't take up a lot of space, even if you just have like a small service bag. And for DIY, this can do pretty much everything you're gonna need. If you did have to screw in enormous lag bolts, you probably need to get a bigger drill, but typically you have a drill driver or a hammer drill plus an impact driver. That's what most kits are these days. So for Pro or Joe, I'm saying that it's both camps in a big, big way. As for how this drill is priced, at the time of recording this video, it was priced at $139 bare tool. It was sold for a little while as a kit. You can get the kit at certain stores. Like any tool, I assume that over time this price will continue to drop. For the money, I think it's priced good, not great. I think there's other things you could get. You could get various tool deals or kit deals that would be a better deal. But again, $139 for a bare tool is a pretty good price for Milwaukee. Are they priced more than their competitors? Absolutely. But they clearly know what they have here, which is a very, very light and also very, very powerful 12-volt impact driver that you can use day after day after day. And that has value to not only the professional user, but also DIYers and pretty much anyone because it is so small and can do so much. It can't do everything, but it can do quite a bit. So overall, I think this is a reasonable price. It's not great, but again, you can get a better deal out there, but you know what you're getting with this, and you know the performance of it as well, and the weight also is something that's just incredible. All right, so final thoughts. Would I recommend this drill? Would I recommend this tool? Yes. For everyone, probably not, but if you already are on the M12 platform and you have batteries, this is a great drill. It's super lightweight. You can use it day in and day out. I think it could have applications for homeowners, for professionals. The one drawback that I do see is, again, as I mentioned, it does get a little bit hot when you're using it over and over and over and over again for repetitive stuff like attaching subfloor. So the longevity of this, I really don't know. I've had other Milwaukee tools get warm and they've lasted a super long time. I've had other tools from Milwaukee and other brands get really hot and die after 6 months. But this has been with me for about 120 days. It's performed really, really well. So I would recommend this to pretty much everyone. And I would say if you need an impact driver and you want something small and compact that isn't going to be able to do the work of like an 18 volt, if you want something a little bit more, again, just compact, it just fits in your toolbox perfectly, this is really the drill. I like it. I think it's great. And I've certainly had a good experience using it so far. Well, that is it for this episode. Again, I hope you enjoyed the review. Again, if you can hit the subscribe button, please do, and give us a thumbs up as well if you like the content. Also, if you want to get notified of future episodes, which there are going to be some really cool tools that we're going to be reviewing, hit the bell icon as well. But that's it for now. Again, stay well, be safe, and be kind to others. Take care.